Hello everyone and welcome again to another episode of the Franchise Everything podcast where we talk about everything and anything franchising. And today we're actually at a live podcast event we're filming at the Franchising Business Opportunities Expo in Melbourne. And I'm joined by Peter Knight, who is the franchise accountant. That's how you like it to be said, isn't it?
I do like it like that.
You know, you want
Glenn, thefranchiseaccountant.com.au.
Okay. Oh, he throws in the URL there. You know, you're not supposed to do that. But what we're going to talk about in this episode is how to figure out the profitability of a brand new franchise location. So there is two different types of franchises, a brand new one or a resale one of an existing franchisee. This is a brand new one, and this one can sometimes be a bit difficult for people to get their head around to figure out. And you do a lot in this space. So what do you see out there of people generating figures around this sort of stuff?
Yeah, with a brand new franchise, they use the term greenfield. They call it a greenfield.
Yep.
And there's no existing trading figures. It hasn't existed before. And so accountants are a little bit uneasy about this because accountants like having certainty and we like to look at somebody else's figures.
Yeah.
How has the business gone before? Well, if it's brand new, there are no other figures. So we have to come up with something ourselves.
And how do you do that?
Yeah, we look at the areas that we can be certain about. There's a few areas, mostly in regard to the expenses. So, for instance, if we're looking at a particular location, we'll be able to find out what the rent is. Rent is often one of the biggest expenses. So we can work out what the rent is. So we'll start with that. We then look at what other expenses we can get our heads around. If we know the sort of business it'll be, we should be able to work out what the wages expense will be. So straight away, we've got rent and wages. If we know wages, we know super, what the superannuation will be. We know how much tax we need to pay on the wages. We'll be able to work out workers' comp insurance on those wages. So bit by bit, we're starting to pull together
the pieces.
Yeah, the core numbers.
But with a brand new franchise, how do you know this? This is off benchmark data from existing franchises, and what is that? How do you get that information?
Yep. We like asking the franchisor what sort of benchmark we should be able to shoot for as far as expenses. Well, there's also typically we'd find some finance charges need to come in there. If we need to borrow some money or we need to lease some equipment, we need to understand what those finance charges are. So from that would be the first area that we look at.
So we end up with wages, rent, finance charges.
Finance charges, other operating costs, how much we're going to spend at Officeworks for costs of supplies and paper and things like that. We can allocate something for bookkeeping and accounting. We've got a good feel for how much those costs will be. So we get a pretty strong position of what the costs will be.
So how does a person inquiring about a franchise get this information? So what does it look like when they're coming across it? Because it's a bit of a mystery tour for many people inquiring about a franchise.
Yeah, it's a mystery tour. A lot of that information will be in what's called the disclosure document. The franchisor must give a disclosure document that outlines this information, but some of that won't be particularly useful.
It's a bit generic, is it?
A bit generic. So, for instance, you might say, what's the rent? The disclosure document will say what the rent is across the franchise brand. But you might have somebody in South Tasmania compared to somebody in the middle of Melbourne CBD.
Yeah.
So the information's correct, but not really useful. So you'd want to know exactly if we've got a business that's going to be set up in Epping, what's the rent for that store in Epping? So we want to be specific about it.
For wages, the disclosure document would give generally a percentage, wouldn't it? Percentage of wages, which is common to that business?
Yeah, it'll be percentage
for that. Pretty accurate, generally.
Yeah, that is accurate. But you want to know, say, for instance, if it's got a roster, you'd be able to cost the roster and work out pretty closely what the wages will be. Wages and rent are pretty much the biggest expenses, as well as then, depending on the business, the cost of goods sold. And that's certainly some information the franchisor will be able to provide.
Okay, so what's next for you? What's the next step?
Yep, next step from there, we add all those figures up and then we gross up by the gross profit and come up with a figure for the target sales. So that's the end result of this. We come up with what the sales figure should be to cover the expenses of the business, to cover the financing costs of the business, and then how much the owner, the new franchisee, how much they want to make. So it reverse engineers the way of working out the profitability of a brand new site.
Do you think this gets done enough? Like you speak to you must speak to hundreds of buyers a year, hundreds and hundreds.
We've done hundreds now.
What do you see? What are they telling you? What's the level of knowledge in this area like?
That's a different question. The level of knowledge that we see of people looking to buy a business is just because of their background, that you might be a teacher or a truck driver or something that's not a business person, they may not have awareness of it. And so it's an ongoing battle to help educate people so they're aware of the numbers and the key numbers to look at.
So you've got that sales figure thereafter.
Yep.
So how are you talking about that? You've got that sales figure and the forecast and the costs and everything there.
Yep.
So are you then figuring out off that, okay, so asking them how much do you want to earn?
Yep.
And timeframes.
How much, and that time frame relates to what the term of the franchise is. Typically, we're seeing 5 years with maybe an option to go for another 5 years.
Yep.
You'd want to be able to get your money back within that first term.
Yeah, that first 5 years.
First 5 years. So that means the profitability of the business has to be able to allow you to get your money back, because who wants to give money, invest in a business if you're not going to get that return?
Because you also want something saleable at the end of it potentially,
You want something saleable.
Yeah.
We're working on one right now where the business is ready for sale. He's just renewed. He's been going in it for 5 years. He's renewed his franchise agreement, done a refresh in the business. It looks like a brand new business.
Yep.
He's got a set of figures that can prove how well it's gone. That business is for sale, and he's already got somebody looking at it.
And he gets a multiple on it because he's got a profit number and all that sort of stuff there.
Profitability.
So what do you see in people? So you talk about? You told me that you see two approaches. You see two types of people, and I laughed when I heard this. But tell me your two approaches of the types of people, or the things you get told when people are asking about a franchise.
Yep. Two different types of people. Some people come along and they are in love with the brand. No matter what we say, they're going to get this thing.
Yep.
And they are just determined.
I want this fitness business there.
I want this fitness business right there because I like fitness and I can see great potential for this business, and I'm going to get it. So we support them as best we can. If there's risks, we're going to identify it and we'll tell them so that everyone can tick off that we've done the due diligence. So that's one category of people. The other category of people love analysing. They've got spreadsheets and what about this and what about that and this scenario and that scenario. They've got so many spreadsheets, it takes them too long to make a decision. Sometimes, one that I've just been working on, he's based in Brisbane, probably 6 weeks worth of analysis, over-analysing. Just make a decision. Let's get on with this.
Yeah.
And he has.
Okay, so make a decision either way.
Make a decision either way.
Were you going to do a Mr. Squiggle drawing stuff or anything? Or
I will identify those 3 things that we want to talk about. Excuse me for a moment. I'll get to the whiteboard.
So, Pete, you're going to jump on the whiteboard and the boys behind the cameras are going to scramble and do all this sort of stuff, try and make it work. So you jump over there.
Excuse my back.
I'll fill some elevator music or something. So what are you going to explain to us?
Number 1, information.
Okay, this is information on purchasing a brand new franchise location.
Profitability. Number 1.
So you want to figure out, number 1,
costs.
Costs.
What are all of the costs that we're going to need for the business? Number 2, finance. What are the finance costs in case we need to do funding for a vehicle or some fit out? And number 3,
so we've got costs for the business to run it, finance costs, obviously your loans. So those loans could be split into like maybe a bank loan for, say, the fit out or whatever it might be, but it might also be some equipment loans, which would be different sorts of loans.
Or a vehicle as well. And the last one is my own wages. How much does the business owner want to take out of the business, or how much do they need to live on?
Yeah.
We need all those 3. Once we work those out, we can work out the target sales. And from that, we can work out the profitability of the business.
Okay. So you basically, as you said, you're reverse engineering the whole thing.
Yep. We need all this information to start with, and then we can work out the profitability after that.
Okay. Take a seat again so you can hear through the big mic. Changing mics now. Okay. So do you find, especially when you talk about those two approaches, those people, I'm interested because those factors there are very straightforward. You could figure those ones out there on the board there, especially if you get enough information from the franchisor and the other stores. How do people take it? With the approach of people say, I love this business regardless, I'm getting it anyway. What if they're not very good? What if the result of that is not very good? How do you let them know?
So even if they're in love with it and those figures aren't looking strong.
They're the ones I worry about.
they're the ones that we still we go through the numbers carefully.
Yep.
And we say, just so long as everybody's clear, these are the expenses you're going to be up for. The thing with expenses, for instance, if it's a rental premise, you're signing up for this. You're going to be paying the rent for 5 years.
Yep.
So that's a big financial commitment.
Over around your neck.
You're committed, and often they'll ask for a guarantee, a director's guarantee, to make sure that you'll pay.
Yeah.
So it's a big commitment. And so we just want to be very clear that sales target figure, that everybody's clear that they need to hit that number.
And how do you go do you talk to franchisors about this?
Yeah.
So you've got the franchisee who's inquiring and really wanting it. What if when you do the numbers on this, you see, yikes, this is a bit hairy? How do you approach that from a franchisor perspective?
Yeah.
Because that's a difficult conversation because they want to get a sale, don't they?
Franchisor wants to get the sale. Franchisee wants to get it, but nobody wants a mess at the end of the day if the numbers can't be there. But it's okay. By having that target, we can then say, okay, that's the target we need to get. Just say for the discussion, it's $800,000. Okay, guys, let's all of us sit around the table. We have to hit $800,000. What's our promotion going to be? What's our launch going to be? What's our sales strategy going to be? What's our social media? What's our SEO? What's our marketing plan? Let's put our heads together because we've got to get 800. If we don't hit 800, this thing doesn't work.
So, I mean, that could actually be quite instructive for a franchisor, isn't it? Because they could then put together a whole plan around that to make it happen.
Yeah. We've had franchisors say to us, we're actually delighted to have this sort of information so that we know that we've got a financial basis that we're working from. And from this, we can set our plan. Everyone knows where we're going and what the components are that make that come together.
Excellent. Excellent, Peter. Well, you're coming now. This was a brand new franchise. You're coming back tomorrow to show everyone how to work out the profitability of an existing franchise business with existing sales.
Yep.
So we've teased it a little bit with this one, and then we're going to do the next one tomorrow.
Slightly different approach.
Yeah.
But looking forward to it.
Excellent, mate. So now, Peter, if people want to get in contact with you, are the franchiseaccountant.com.au.
That's exactly right. Happy to take any calls or inquiries on email. Looking forward to it.
And you also do a franchise assessment, don't you? So you can assess a site, a single site and location. That's pretty much what you do. What's it called? What's that product called?
It's called a pre-purchase review. $12.95 plus GST, fixed fee. Yeah. Everyone knows what they're up for.
Yeah, I think it's highly valuable. I think every single person who's going to franchise should get it.
And we go through that approach. It's perfect for a greenfield.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, thanks for joining us again, mate.
Thanks,
Much
Ben.
appreciated.
Talk
and
soon.
that's it for the Franchise Everything podcast again here from this live event at the Melbourne Franchise and Business Opportunities Expo. If you like this sort of stuff, please like, share, subscribe, do all that sort of thing. Tell everyone about it if they're interested in a franchise. There's no better person out there than assessing if this franchise is going to work for you than Peter Knight. I've known him for a long, long time. So love you, Pete. We'll catch you in the next one soon.